Yeah, well, we'll get started on this. My name is Dimitri Broxton. I'm the Senior Director of Education for Museum of the African Diaspora. And thank you everyone for joining us for the very first of our series of In the Artist Studio. We're kicking it off with one of our favorite artists of all time, the wonderful Andrew Wilson. So I'll start off by giving Andrew's bio, which is in no way a complete bio of who this wonderful human being is that we're with today. So Andrew Wilson is a multimedia artist working in the intersections of ritual and funerary rites, honoring the deceased, the ways objects accumulate spirit particles, and how these collide to open portals to different dimensions. His work is at once beautiful with an attention to craftsmanship, and repulsing. This is Andrew's work. I don't find any of his work repulsing, but repulsing in his graphic subject matter. He wants to create an extra moment of confoundment for the viewer to contemplate their relationship to the work and the imaginary, or the imagery and histories it evokes. He received his BFA from the Ohio Wesleyan University in 2013 with a concentration in jewelry and metal arts. And he received his MFA from the University of California, Berkeley in 2017. Wilson's work has been in many galleries and institutions, including the Berkeley Art Museum, Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, SOMArts, and the Museum of the African Diaspora. Again, this is not comprehensive. We'll get into that more. He has received such awards and honors as the Jack K. and Gertrude Murphy Award, an emergency grant from the Foundation of Contemporary Arts, the Carr Center Independent Scholars Fellowship, the McColl Center, and more. He has also worked with Carrie Mae Weems on The Spirit That Resides in Havana, Cuba, alongside the Havana Biennial. Is it Biennial? How do they say it down there?
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah, right? And the Future Is Now parade for the opening of The Reach in Washington, D.C. His work has been collected by Michigan State University and the University of New Mexico. Andrew, thank you so much for joining and kind of being our test out for this series. I couldn't think of a better person to start this off with. And so, I just kind of want to start off. Yeah, I just want to start off by asking, where are you at right now? Tell us what you're up to.
Oh, wow. Well, first, thank you for that intro. I mean, wow. It sounds way cooler than I feel like I am. So that's pretty dope.
Not even close.
But currently I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the McColl Center, still in residence with this kind of craziness that's happening right now, our global health crisis. The residency was supposed to be ending on the 28th of this month, but it's been extended out until the end of May. So I'll still be here for another month, and I'm super excited because this space has been really, really productive, and I'm very, very thankful.
Well, can you tell folks a little bit more about this residency and what does it entail? How did you get it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. So the McColl Center for Arts plus Innovation is a really incredible, really important residency here. Well, I mean, around the world. It's housed here at in North Carolina in Charlotte. And there are 6 of us in residence, and everyone's amazing. And we have an incredible studio. We have a beautiful, great stipend, a nice, healthy stipend. We have a condo, and we have access to, state-of-the-art machinery and equipment. And everyone here has been extremely helpful, and they're always trying to figure out what more they can do to support us and what we're working on. Currently, at the moment, my studio changed from being inside the McColl Center to one of the vacant condos that they own here in the building, because we can't be in the building because it's a non-essential.
Non-essential.
That's my word.
Yeah.
It's even though art's super essential, and anyway, but that's a whole nother thing. So that kind of shuffle happened, and McColl is incredible, and folks should be applying. You apply, and that's what you do. And I think it's amazing. And I'm excited for folks in the future who will be here.
Yeah. So, you know, how are you doing in this whole thing? I mean, you went there. You said your time has been extended past, you know, what you expected. It sounds like they're taking good care of you. But you know, how is this impacting the work that you're making? It seems like it's positively impacting your overall well-being. But yeah, how is that going for you?
It's hard. I'm doing all right. I have my ups and my downs. I think I've realized what the cycle is. It's kind of about maybe a week and a half of very productive energy, and then pretty down in the dumps for like 4 or 5 days after that. And it just happens in these cycles, or these phases, because I'm pretty isolated. So I'm not sheltered in place with other people. And that's been really tough, especially because the art world is a very social space. Sure. I mean, I miss visiting folks, you know, studios and chopping it up with my homies and going to openings and going to events. And I miss dancing. So it's going well. It's going well. Definitely has its ups and its downs, but I'm adjusting like all of us have to, because that's just the world we're in at the moment.
Sure. Is it impacting? I mean, now that you're not able to go out and be social, is it impacting your productivity? Are you making more work, or what's going on with that?
Well, I can't say that that's changed that much. I think I'm still as productive as I was. My space is smaller, so the larger work that I was starting has kind of been halted. So I've been working on these quilts, and you can kind of see one behind me right there in the background. And we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But so the work, my productivity, I don't believe has suffered. I think that there are times that being able to work in the studio in this extreme isolation is really helpful. I just throw on some music and I can work in a quiet space and just be here for hours and hours and hours at a time. And it's just downstairs instead of across the street, which isn't really that much different, I guess.
So yeah,
but
I mean, you're inspired at 3 a.m. You can
I can just walk downstairs. But I mean, also my practice is very solitary, and I have most of my machinery and equipment here in the space. So I haven't been as impacted as other folks that I know, because I work with machines and equipment that I can move pretty rapidly. It's pretty portable. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. I kind of want to go all the way back and find out a little bit more information about you personally. You know, what was the very first experience that you ever had where you realized, hey, I want to be an artist. This is what I want to dedicate my life to. Can you go back that far?
Well, folks who know me know that I can't remember what I did last week, so this is going to be a stretch. But you know, I think I've always kind of had a creative bug. I know that in elementary school, I was writing poetry. My grandmother was a seamstress. My mother was a seamstress until she did weddings and stuff like crazy. And she did that until my older brother was born, then she stopped. And so that's kind of in the blood. The blood is tailors and seamstresses and education.
Okay.
That's like the family that I come from. And I think there was a moment in high school, well, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, well, crazy high school journey. That's a whole nother story. But at one school that I went to, they had a fashion club, and I was in that club, and then they had a jewelry kind of club, and that's where I got into jewelry, but it was more macrame and like beading. And after I was doing that, and then left that school, I realized that I wanted to do jewelry. And so I was taking workshops in like wire work, and not necessarily fabrication like I do now, And so that was something that really drew me in. And then I got to the school I graduated from in Oakland, because, you know, I have an Oakland shirt.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm from, you know, whatever. But the school I graduated from, I was really politically involved with like educational policy change and student leadership throughout the district. And then I got in deep with Youth Speaks, which I'm still really close with those folks now. So I've been working with them for over a decade. And so all of that happened. And then when I was going to college for undergrad, I decided I wanted to study jewelry. That's just what I decided. And I'm so thankful that like my mom and my family and my community and my teachers and friends all supported that decision, because I know that there's a lot of folks that aren't supported so wholly in that way.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I don't know if there's one moment. I think that it's a lifetime of nudging and being supported.
Okay, so this was always something in you. I want to go back to the jewelry. I mean, you know, I personally know your jewelry work, but you know, from what I've seen in your exhibitions, the textile really takes center stage. How does, you know, what you do with jewelry and metal casting and forming, how does that find its way into these other works, such as the quilt work that you're doing right now? Or do you see them as two separate practices?
Oh no, it's all together. I think for everyone who knows me and how ridiculous and meticulous I am in these larger works, so the clothing work or any of the larger textile works, they're all very, very meticulous. If my mother isn't muted or my brother isn't muted, they can completely attest to how crazy it is. Like, this seam is like an 1/8 inch off. It needs to be redone.
Wow.
And so that meticulousness comes from jewelry, I believe, because in jewelry, if you're a fraction of a millimeter off, the whole thing is ruined.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that all of these things work in tandem. And it's really great that at the moment, jewelry has come back full force. I have a really dope flex shaft. I have my torch. I have all of the tools I really need to do the work that I've been wanting to do for a long time. The only thing with jewelry is the tools are expensive. So it takes time to build up to getting those tools, where textiles, it's not as cost prohibitive.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. So I want to know a little bit more about this residency. What, you know, I want to go into the work that you're doing there. Or, you know, you initially started off talking about wanting to do these larger pieces, but now your space is smaller. So, you know, can you talk about that journey?
Yeah, so I'm gonna grab my phone in a second, and I'm gonna show y'all some stuff.
I love it.
In a minute. So when I initially wrote my application for McColl, I've been interested in the Carolinas and especially Charleston for a while, because Charleston is the main landing spot for folks who are enslaved, right? So there's a very important history here in this place for enslavement and the transatlantic slave trade. So with that, I think it's important being here. And I wanted to work in quilts for a very, very, very long time. And what kind of took precedence over that was the larger clothing line series that I had worked on. And a lot of it was shown at the MOAD, and some of that was also shown, and that kind of the cap was put on it at YBCA for that show, which was a crazy amount of work. I mean, 454 caftans was ridiculous and important, and I don't know if I can do that kind of performative labor again. But we'll see. So I wasn't able to kind of go in this direction that I wanted to go until that work was done. And so coming here what I decided to do was bring the fabrics that my grandmother left. So these are the fabrics that after she was evicted from San Francisco in the early 2000s, she kept. And this is through dumping her massive sewing room. This is from the donation piles. This is from giving fabrics and machines and equipment to the first high school I went to for the fashion club. I mean, this is stuff that's lasted.
Wow.
And stuff that was really important to her. So the fabrics that I brought here were her fabrics that she kept. And then the scraps from the larger clothing line series. So that's been the primary material that I've been working with here.
Okay. And
yeah, material.
I also just kind of want to go, I think just memory, family histories, family narratives, I'm glad that you brought that up, because in the show at MOAD, where you had objects and ephemera from your grandmother, you had objects, and hopefully everyone on this webinar has seen your work and knows what I'm referencing. But Andrew's work, if you haven't seen it, the work at that show, he had these plinths that were based off of the floor plan of the slave ship Brooks. And I mean, just that alone would have been an amazing show by itself, just taking the architecture of the slave hull and just giving it to us in scale so that we could experience what that's like. But then you took it to another level where you started adding these very personal effects, even dreadlocks that had been cut off by your classmates, your own dreadlocks, and visibly being able to see what a bale of cotton looks like. That's the equivalent to the average man's body. I mean, you have, your work has all of these details, but I want to know more about like there's a slavery, the long-term memory, the things that are encoded within the DNA, but then you also have these personal, lived experience memories that connect to your family, and even things that are happening with you personally. I want to know a little bit more about that and how that informs all of your body of work and who Andrew Wilson is as an artist. I know that's a lot.
Well, yes, and really important. I think what happened is I was working so hard on that clothing line series that was really about the ratios that were part of the deck plan of the Brooks, and really looking at the transatlantic slave trade as, probably more of an academic space. And after doing that for so long, I realized that that work doesn't necessarily have the spirit in it. Like it was lacking that, because it was very academic work. And I think that it was easier for me to make work that I could keep distance from than making work that was of me and my family and my history and my own story. And I think that kind of ties to writing and poetry and my time in Youth Speaks, because we realize that the most important stories that we know are the stories that are extremely personal, because we can connect to something that's deeply personal. We always can, because there's something that's part of all of us in something that's very vulnerable and deeply personal. So that's how I kind of veered into this space and had wanted to do for a long time. And so the work, especially with the locks, like that, that piece is really intense. And I wish I could show you, it's across the street, but I can't get in the building. But so that work was made at Cal. It was my final semester, my final critique, and I was like about to be done. And I had these locks I'd grown for 5 years, and I finished undergrad in that hair. I had my heart broken in that hair. I started grad school in that hair. I worked my first job at a college in that hair. And so it was time for it to go. And I actually put a lot of jewelry in my hair. I'm waiting for this to get longer so I can put stuff back in. It's gonna happen. And so when I think about that, it makes me think of a portrait. So it's the idea of portraiture, and I think that that's tying into the question that you're asking about memory and ephemera, objects, and material. I think what I'm exploring now is how do we think about portraiture without the figure? So how is a portrait a collection or an accumulation of spirit of that person? And so the the film is really crazy. If you haven't watched it, it's on my website, and that's aiwart.com, and someone will put it in the chat because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, but someone will. But that film was my cohort cutting all of my hair. And so the film goes with the work, but they also exist separately. So that film is currently at Franklin Street Works in Connecticut. And the hair piece, that portrait or that sculpture, is here in Charlotte. It's nuts. So I'm trying to figure out how to wrap all of this cleanly back into the question that you asked because it's a very large question.
It is a large question. I mean, and I think the way that you're asking, you know, I just want to kind of go with the flow of that and the fact that so for people who haven't seen the video, it's everyone coming up and with scissors and cutting his hair. And by everyone, you know, hair for Black folks is this very personal thing and has this centuries long history of why, you know, when Solange has a you know, powerful song of "Don't Touch My Hair," Andrew is inviting people who are not Black to come and not just touch his hair but cut it off as part of this performance. So you know, I don't know if you could possibly be even more vulnerable than that whole act. So I mean, I think all of this, even though it's a separate act, it does tie in to the histories. It is very personal, and it goes into your narratives. And I think in this way, that, you know, even you had it paired at the show at MOAD with a chair that I don't remember anymore though, if the chair was based off of a chair that had been stuffed with human hair.
So that chair, and thank you, Hannah, for putting my website on the chat, folks. You can go check it out too. So that's really, thank you, Hannah. That chair, the idea is based on a conversation that I had with Brian Keith Thomas, and he was telling me about this chair that this family owned, and they had reupholstered, and so they sent it to an upholsterer, and it was stuffed with human hair. Now, that's kind of the base idea. And so the chair that was at MOAD is based in, it's made in the American Empire style chair, and that style was popular from 1800 to 1850, so a precursor to the Emancipation Proclamation. And it's made of poplar wood and stuffed with cotton that hasn't been ginned, so cotton that still has seed, and human hair. So my brother had a big mohawk, and he cut it off, and I was like, Cam, I know you know that I'm weird. I know you know I'm weird. Can I have that? And it's, oddly enough, I do have collections of locks sitting in a box on the floor. There's going to be some really dope work that's going to be happening with it, and I'll tell y'all about it in a little bit. And so he was, I mean, very generous to give that to me, and also not question the random thing that I'll probably use, like, all right, I cut it off. Go ham, I guess. I don't know. Like, so, but yeah, so that piece was paired. It was sitting in front of the self-portrait lock sculpture, and then to the left of it was the projected video. in that show.
Yeah, I mean, I think aside from that, another material that I identify your work with, that has found its way in your most recent exhibitions has been the cyanotype. And can you talk about cyanotype, even what it is, to start off, and why does that recur in your work time and time again, including in the photo for this talk that we're having right now?
Yeah, it is. It's so funny. It totally is. And that work that's in the photo is an old work. That's actually one of the first cyanotypes I did on fabric in 2012. Okay. That's an old work. So cyanotype, it's kind of an oddball. And I think the important thing with cyanotype for me is that there's no way to get it perfect. And I am extremely methodological. I'm an extreme perfectionist. If anyone disagrees with that, I don't think that you know who I am. And so cyanotype is the wrench in the system to me.
Okay.
And I learned cyanotype in undergrad from Jeff Nyland. Jeff Nyland is super amazing. If you don't know who he is, check out his work. He does these incredible cyanotypes. They're massive. And so I learned it, and I was like, this is kind of cool, I guess. And then I was in New York with the New York Arts Program, and we had to make a piece in New York for our time there. And so when I was in New York, I was interning with Fred Wilson. And if y'all don't know who Fred Wilson is, he's amazing. Check him out. I love Fred. He's awesome. So I interned with him for about 6 months, 5-6 months. And the work that was created was called Shop. And I don't know if there are any images of it on the site. It's very hard to make books or to photograph books. But that piece was a collaborative work between myself and Joshua Merchant, who is an incredible poet, incredible writer, incredible human. And it's images of the barbershop that are cyanotype on 100% cotton rag with poems overlaid in transparency on them. Okay. And so that's kind of where cyanotype was for me. And then I went home for winter break, and when I was at home, I was like, hold on a second. If this is an aqueous solution, so cyanotype as a technique is a 2-chemical thing. So it's potassium ferrocyanide and ferric ammonium citrate. Generally, if you look at it, it's going to be called cyanotype formula A and B. Very easy, very, very easy. You don't need to know all the chemistry stuff. And you mix these 2 chemicals together, and they create a light-sensitive solution. And you take that solution and you coat your substrate. Most people are using paper. There are a lot of folks that are using fabric. There's even some folks that have been experimenting with cyanotype on ceramic. And I've been working in cyanotype on glass. And some of those are also in, some of those are on the website if you check them out. Cyanotypes on glass. I need to update it, and I'm kind of a caveman, so I'm bad at updating my website. I'm doing it soon, I think, because quarantine.
Yep.
So, so that's kind of the technique. And the thing I enjoy about cyanotype is that it's not cost prohibitive. Anyone can do it. It's very, very accessible, and you don't need much to do it. You just need a room that can be pitch black, or I shouldn't say pitch black, a room that can be UV light tight, because cyanotype doesn't react with anything that's not UV. Well, it does, but it happens so much slower that it's not, I mean, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm.
And then water. You just need water and sunlight, and that's kind of it. So with cyanotype, for me, I think that as a process, I enjoy the blue. I think that the blue is an allusion to music. It's an allusion to water, especially with the process itself is sunlight and water. And I print on cotton, and I only print on cotton.
Ah, okay.
But there's, again, no way to get it perfect. I've been working in cyanotype for at least 8 years, and I can't get it perfect, but I can get real close.
And by perfect, you mean like capturing or relaying every single detail, or what do you mean? What do you mean by when you say perfect? Because your work is perfect in my eyes.
It's because you're not a crazy perfectionist like me. Or I shouldn't even say that. It's because you're not in my head with all the craziness in my head.
You mean perfectly
Probably.
straight lines, perfect consistency?
Nah, not
with the
even
color,
that. Just like the exposure, the midtones, something that happens with fabric that's really interesting that I actually hated at first is it prints the wrinkles in the fabric.
Okay.
So all the wrinkles are always printed. So they almost look like light reflecting off of a rippling water surface. It's really, really interesting. And I hated it at first. I was like, I hate this. This is supposed to be blue. Why does it look like this? And now I've grown to really like it. And I've found some techniques to not get as much of it, but still allow for that possibility.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, kind of at this point, because I think we're running short on time, and I definitely want to allow time for the audience to ask their questions. I see we already have a couple in the Q&A. And so as, you know, just I'll pause, and as people, we won't do it yet, but as you have questions for Andrew, I invite you to put them in either the chat window, we'll check there as well. There's also a Q&A window. So put them in either place. We have time, but I want to allow Harley. We have time, but I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask your questions as well within our hour of time together.
Well, let me show you what I'm working on. Let's do that instead of just sitting static, and then let's go to questions. How does that sound?
I love it.
Okay, so I'm gonna and it's charged. For all y'all folks who are telling me to charge my stuff, it's charged right now. It's been on the charger, so we're at 93%. So we're
wonderful.
Good.
That would be the worst thing is you just stopped.
How do I? Okay, there we go. So, and I need to change my thing. Wait, no, don't go there. Okay, there we go. So this is the larger piece that I've been working on. This is called Gateway. This is made with not the hats, not those, the quilt. So it's made with my grandmother's fabrics and one of my mother's bed sheets that I hand quilted along with these quilt circles. So I organized a couple of quilt circles thanks to the folks here at McColl. And we had some folks come in and we quilted together to make this.
That is amazing.
That's this piece. There's a couple more iterations of it. So this will be, I need to finish the hats. And then from the remnants, I can make the book cloth for the dream journal that goes with it. And I plan on sleeping under it for at least a month, probably longer, and recording all of the dreams that happen while I'm sleeping under this, because I believe that a quilt is a portal. I think that it's a gateway, and I believe it's connecting my family legacy and history. So I think that sleeping under it will kind of enact or open that portal in dream space. So then the next piece is, this is portraits of DE in 5 acts. So these hats are bucket hats. She had this one, this is based on the one that I remember. It's made of kind of a cream cotton twill, and the lining is this red polka dots. And so hers was just red on the inside. And so that's what kind of started this whole exploration. And these are, again, made with all of her fabrics, and they're adorned with her jewelry. So some of it is jewelry that is straight out of her costume jewelry collection. Some of it is stuff that I had to rework and work on. And then she had these little guardian angels, these little guys here. Wow. That I really, really love. So that's that stuff. If we go over here, I told y'all I'm in a condo, just chilling. These are pieces that I'm working on right now too. This one is called Drip, and I don't know what this one's called. I just finished it yesterday. And wow. These are scanned 35mm film that's printed on fabric and then quilted, and then the shells are embroidered on.
So are these your photographs, or are these also
Yes.
found photographs? Okay.
Yeah, these are mine. So the one on the left, Drip, that's from 2013. That was at my cousin's graduation from Spelman. And then the one on the right that currently has no title is from the lookbook that goes with the clothing line Fruit. And I believe that lookbook is on my website if you want to check that stuff out. And what else? Oh, so these hats also have hat boxes, and that's what I'm working on here. And the hat boxes are going to be lined with these Eastern stars, and then the lid is lined with the amaranth crown. Well, my grandmother was an Eastern Star, and I know I'm terrible and I shouldn't have read the ritual books. Y'all can yell at me all you want, but I totally did. And there's a verse from Matthew that's read during the funerary rite. So that is on the interior of the box. And I believe that these are, they're kind of funerary urns or burial containers for my grandmother and her spirit.
Wow, see, that's what I'm saying. This everything has a story that you go with it. And how are those printed? That's clearly not cyanotype. What
No,
are you
so
doing there?
these are printed actually on a printer. So I have a technique to print images on fabric.
Wow.
Just with an at-home printer. Y'all, YouTube is the G, all right? Y'all can learn anything on YouTube Academy, and then you just have to figure out how you apply it in the ways that make sense for you. Another piece down here, y'all are like, what the hell is this? So this is broom corn, and I'm gonna be making brooms, altar brooms that are, and I told y'all I have locks, like I have bags of locks. These are locks.
Wow.
Chilling in there. And so the handles will be woven with locks, and they will have moonstones. So that's a whole lot of moonstones. They'll have moonstones, bezel set, and sterling integrated into the handles. Moonstone is supposed to be a stone that protects travelers at night over bodies of water under the light of the full moon. And so I really believe that moonstone's kind of a gateway or a means of opening portals. And I made myself like moonstone gauges. Like that's how serious it is. All right.
Wow.
And then what else? What's happening up in here? I think the boring stuff is in here. I'm making masks because I'm broke. So I got to make masks to make some money.
You are a jack of all trades and an expert at every single one of them. Jeez.
And then this is a really, really large quilt that I can't find the end of, so I can't open it for you because it's somewhere wrapped up. But it's too big for this condo, so I can't even baste it down to the batting. I can't quilt it yet, so it's gonna sit there for a while. But anyway, that's what I'm working on. How do I change? There we go. Boom. Yeah, I'm back. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Wow, that is a lot. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing that you have this extra time, right? You can realize all these other intricate projects that you have going on.
Right.
So I mean, you just I can clearly see now you are integrating all of these. You're integrating all of these things that you've been working on for the last couple of decades with the jewelry. The cyanotype it looks like it's still coming in here. You've got these new print techniques, and the fabric is ever present. Yeah, I'm interested in your process now. You know, some artists have to meticulously plan everything out before they execute. Some folks work more intuitively. I'm not sure how you work. It seems like it's a combination of them all. And can you kind of like talk about the processes that you take for coming up with these different ideas, or does it depend on the medium?
I can't say it's a completely straightforward process. I think if I said that, it'd be a terrible, terrible lie. What I can say is, I believe in the power of three. So if an idea comes back 3 times, then I'll choose to move through and work through it. I think that, especially in my time in undergrad, what was really important was learning the difference between listening to the work and spirit and the material and imposing my own ideas on it. Anytime that I just imposed my own ideas or my desires onto the work or the material, it always failed. Always, 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 always. It was always a failure. And I don't know if it translated to other people as a failure, but it never felt right whenever I worked that way. So I sometimes keep notes. I don't sketch. Okay. I can't sketch at all. I think that anytime I sketch something and commit it to paper, it's like casting a spell. And so if I do that, then it doesn't have the wiggle room to change and to be plastic in the ways that it needs to be.
Okay.
And I have a really terrible memory. And so if something keeps on coming back, like if it keeps on nagging and coming back, then I follow it. But I try not to follow my first impulse.
Okay.
Unless it's something that I just like am trying out. So this fabric printing technique, I printed these photos because they were sitting on my computer and I haven't worked in this type of photography in a long time. And so I was like, let's just see what they do. Because I was testing the technique. But if it's a more serious pursuit, I usually try to make sure I know the technique pretty well, and then just trusting that I know my skill sets. I know it's going to turn out fine because I have the skill sets to make the work. Okay, so I don't have to worry about the skill set. So I think that's mostly the process.
Yeah, you said that like, you just try this thing out. But yeah, I mean, I think it definitely works because of this long amount of time you've spent honing your craft. You know, it's not just something, I don't think I could just pick up some fabric and start printing and have them look as clear as you have them looking. Or most other people. I want to go into some of the questions that folks have on here. I have a couple other questions for you, but let's see. We kind of I think the first one we kind of answered. Let's see. So Edward wants to know, how do you climb out of your slump when it occurs? And do you think the work suffers because of it?
Wow, that's a really good question. That's a super good question. So it seems like it happens in like 4 or 5 day cycles, at least like in this current like moment of slump. So I'm gonna try to answer it in this current moment and then maybe a broader answer too. Mm-hmm. So I think at this current moment, I have to trust that I have to feel however I'm feeling and I have to let that pass. Because if I don't address it and if I ignore it, it's going to get bigger and it's going to get worse. And also trusting that like there is an end to it. Like it's not going to last forever. And so I think that is the hard part, is trusting that it will pass and it will break. And I talk to a lot of my homies. I've been baking with Harley and Nia. We've been baking a lot and I'm getting fat because I can't give away baked goods to other people, so they sit in my condo and I have to eat them and look at them and they're delicious. And I mean, I talk to my family, I talk to my friends. I've been trying to work out, but that's not working out.
Join the club.
Okay. I mean, I got all the equipment to do it, and my yoga mat is on the floor, always unrolled, and I step over it every time. Yeah,
but I think I mean,
Go ahead.
I think some artists, like I personally have gone through a multiple year artist slump or
Mhm.
artist block with it. How do you keep yourself from you said lately it's been, you know, 3 to 5 days, you know,
Mhm.
at times. How do you keep that from going on for weeks or even months or the entirety of your stay there? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
what pulls you out of it?
Well, I think with this residency, I came here with a plan. Like I came here knowing I had to make work. Like that's the why I'm here, is to make work and to have the freedom to explore and also to fail.
Uh-huh.
That's really important. I think we need to allow ourselves to fail. And when I had to transition from my studio at the McColl to this studio condo situation, I was definitely in a slump, and I had to pick something up and start it. And I started making these pin cushions that you can totally see on my Instagram. I was gonna show y'all, but there's a box of them and there's too many to show. Uh, but just picking something up and having no expectation of it. I was just like, I'm gonna make some pin cushions because these are important for sewing.
That makes sense. Okay.
And
Okay.
so it's ended up becoming something larger, but I think generally the slump is um, when I feel them, it's mostly a fear.
Mm,
It's a
okay.
fear that I can't do it right. It's a fear that I'm gonna mess up. It's a fear that I don't have enough money to do what I want to do, so I shouldn't start it.
That's real.
It's a fear. It's a fear that I don't have enough space. Like I think that it's usually based in a fear. And when we try to, like, we have to confront that. And like my studio at home in California is a 10 by 12 and it's itty
Mhm.
bitty. And I made those massive doors that are not on my website yet. They will be in a couple of days, but they're massive. Like I couldn't properly install them to just check to see if they were structurally sound in my studio.
Wow.
But I had to make that work.
Well, I do want to say those doors are on your Instagram account. So if
Oh, they
folks are
are. Yes,
following
they are.
you, they can definitely see them there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome. I love
yeah.
how you keep yourself busy and you know, kind of on that with your other little side projects. And you know, you talked about also the need to make money during this time of the quarantine. So
Yeah.
Susanna wants to know how do we order a bag from you?
Oh, fanny packs and stuff. Just hit me, send me a DM, and we'll talk it out. I know that like at the moment, I'm more. I don't have as many choices in fabrics because I'm not at my home studio where I have a massive fabric wall. Here I have very limited options. But let's chat. Let's talk it up and figure something out.
What about those masks that you showed us?
Oh, the mask. I'm still finishing up making inventory because really I don't want to make more than 100 because my tendonitis is not happy with me
Yeah.
because they're very finicky and lots of little parts and details. But I do plan on relatively soon. I'm waiting for these filters to come. So these masks actually have a filter pocket. So you can put a
Wow.
PM 2.5 filter inside the mask and you can change it out. They're 100% cotton. They're actually super comfortable. They fit the face really well. I would show you, but I don't want to contaminate one of them in there. Mine is upstairs. um, so I'm waiting for the filters to arrive and then I'll create like a Google form, like an order form for folks to order.
Okay, of course your masks are next level. Let me see. I want to go back to Edward's question.
Yeah.
Do you have an audience in mind when you create work? It seems like you're working through some personal history. Does that help you spiritually? So it's a two-part question.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
Do I have an
are you
audience in
thinking of an
mind?
audience? Yeah.
Yes and no. I I make work to heal myself. I make work to work through things. Um, I think for me, it's about the process of making the work more so than who's going to see the work. And I think that's important for me because if I concern myself too much with who's going to see it, I can't make the work because I have to consider too many variables. I have to consider way too many variables, or I can just make the work that feels right and trust that whoever needs what's happening in the work is going to find it. I think that that's what happens when we're vulnerable. And I think that when we are vulnerable, we create the opportunity for someone else to do so as well. Like it's giving permission of sorts. And the second part of the question, let me get to that part.
How does your work help you?
I do believe it does help me spiritually. I believe that in my practice that I'm kind of an open channel or a medium that is connecting with and talking with the different spirits in space. So they're in dialogue, the material is having its own dialogue, and I kind of feel like I'm a bridge between them. That's really what I kind of believe my role is. I don't think that I, Andrew Wilson, am the sole author of any work that I do. I don't believe that at all. I believe that it's always in dialogue and it's always in partnership.
So do you see your work as, kind of adding on that? Is your work intended to not just heal yourself or to convey these messages that are channeled through you, or how do you want your work to live out in the world, I guess? Clearly you're not making work that's just for a gallery that's solely for consumption. It's much deeper than that. So yeah, how do you want it to live?
I can't say that I give extreme thought to that question. I just make the work.
I love it. A true artist.
I just make the work, and it seems as though folks are enjoying it, and folks want it. They want to see it. They want to show it. They want to experience it, which is incredible, and I'm thankful for that. But I don't concern myself with how does it live after. That's not my job or my business. That's the work's job and the work's business, because now it's been born and given. So I can't just keep holding it hostage.
I love it. We have one more question from Hannah. What are you eating to sustain your energy work?
Well, usually sushi. But what's been great here is I've been doing a lot more cooking, and so I eat a lot of kale, a lot of sautéed kale. I'm mostly eating like veggies and lean meats, poultry.
Because you're being all healthy.
And I don't really drink alcohol. I mostly just drink water and like tea. I've kind of really given up weed. Like all of these things have been clouding me, and I feel a lot more like clear and able to see and able to listen. I think that's the biggest thing. I think I'm finally able to listen again in ways that I don't think I was able to listen because of what I was putting in my body before.
Wow, I love that. So the quarantine is kind of helping you in all these other ways as well.
Well, I mean, I don't really drink that much generally because I worked at a strip club for a long time. I was a valet at a strip club in San Francisco for a couple of years. And after just being there and always being at work when everyone else was going and getting hammered, it made it a lot less appealing to go get hammered. And like, I don't like how I feel the next day. And yeah, it just doesn't feel right anymore. I mean, even if I go to a bar with homies, I may have a beer, but I'm probably gonna just get some like water or something like kicking it. I don't know, it just doesn't do it.
Let me see where are we at with time. I wanted to we have one more question, but I also just kind of wanted to give you time to plug what's next for you. I mean, I know that things are tenuous right now, but you know, what are some shows that you have coming up? Though we know there's probably nothing until the fall, but you know, what's new? What's next for Andrew?
The very beautiful thing at this moment is I don't have anything planned.
Okay.
I don't have any shows planned. Well, I'm in talks about a solo in December in the city.
Wonderful.
So that, you know, we're in talks. But I don't really have anything planned. I'm doing some fabrication for some other artists. So doing some custom work. I'm staying here in North Carolina. I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna get some property and I'm gonna build here. I think it's time for me to leave the Bay to kind of expand in the new ways I know I need to expand. I think that's the biggest thing.
So you're now thinking about North Carolina as your home base? Wow. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. I can hear myself think here, which is really amazing.
That's real.
I think I've just gotten tired of being in a large metropolitan area. It's too many people, it's too much. And everyone's fighting for the same things, and I don't know if it's important to do that anymore for this work. I don't know if this work can happen in that kind of setting at all.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I want to build out a residency. I want to create space for other folks because that's important too.
Well, make it happen, Ashe. Thank you so much, Andrew, for taking the time with us. Katrina, I'm sorry we didn't get to your question. I think we can answer that offline, but I want to stick with our time here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Andrew, it's always a pleasure to talk. I could literally talk to you all day long, every single day.
I know, we could talk. Well, I mean, I totally do. And I thought that it was hella long because I have like openings planned in my brain. Thanks, Mia, for catching that and calling me out.
Yeah, was that a three-hour thing? We wanted to make sure folks on the East Coast, where you're located, need the time for there as well. Yeah, and everyone who's on there, we invite you to come back for our talk at this same time next week with Ramakant Orwisters. Yeah, I get to talk to all my favorite people. I love it.
So good. When are you doing your talk? You got to do a talk, Dimitri, because you're an incredible artist.
I'm not doing
You got to. You're doing super dope work that you never plug yourself.
Yeah, I'll do that at a separate platform.
Okay, I guess. I want to figure out how to plug you. How do I plug you personally?
There you go. I'll come through on an Andrew talk anytime.
Sweet. All right. Sweet. All right. Thank y'all so much for chilling with me.
Yeah, so much love for you.
Thank you. Bye, Andrew.
Bye, everyone.